Good evening, everyone. My name is Lauren Majorowski, and I am the Director of JD Admissions at the University of Connecticut School of Law. First, before we get into the meat of our program, which you should have all seen from the agenda I sent out, is a packed program, I do want to touch on some housekeeping items. So, number one, you should have been muted upon entry. If you find yourselves unmuted at any point, please keep yourself muted to minimize disruption. Secondly, familiarize yourself with the chat feature. The chat feature is going to enable you to ask us questions in real time during the event. I and my Assistant Director of JD Admissions, Rachel Torres, will be on the back end answering your questions as presentations are occurring. And then the chat feature is also where you are going to be able to submit questions for both our current student panel as well as our alumni panel. And so with that, let's get it started. So I joined UConn Law 2 years ago, and it has been a fantastic experience for me. But instead of spending an hour and a half with just you looking at my face and me telling you all of the wonderful reasons why UConn, I decided that we should bring on some colleagues of mine, the experts in their respective fields, to share some general overviews and also some unique features that make UConn Law a fantastic choice for your legal education. And so with that, I am going to cede the floor to our Dean, Ebony Nelson, who would like to welcome you all today.
Thank you so much, Lauren. Good evening, everyone. How's everyone doing? Thumbs up, thumbs down, kind of, sort of. Well, I thank you all so much for being here. It gives me great pleasure to welcome all of you on behalf of our UConn faculty, staff, students, and alumni. I'm so excited that you're considering applying to law school. And for those of you who have already been admitted to UConn Law, congratulations. This evening, you will hear from our amazing deans, directors, students, and alumni about why UConn Law. I actually joined UConn Law as dean just a little bit over 3 months ago. And so as, you know, the new kid on the block, I thought I'd take a few moments to share why I chose UConn Law. Central to our law school's mission are values of accessibility and affordability. We seek to provide a legal education to students regardless of their stage in life. Some of you may be like me, planning to head to law school right after graduation from college, whereas others of you may already be in your careers and you're thinking about coming to law school as a second career. You may be planning to work full-time while you're in law school. Well, we have programs, both full-time day programs as well as evening programs, so that we can provide a great legal education to all students regardless of their stage in life. As one of the top ranked public law schools here in the Northeast, actually the top highest ranked public law school here in the Northeast, we take our public mission very seriously to provide a great legal education at also an affordable price. I came to UConn Law also because of its commitment to excellence in imparting what we call practical wisdom to all of our students. Our law school will equip you with both the legal knowledge as far as the rules and principles of law, as well as the practical skills to put that legal knowledge to work as you advocate on behalf of your clients. I was also drawn here because of our commitment to helping students define and achieve their professional and personal goals. Some students come to law school knowing exactly what they want to do and exactly what type of lawyer they want to be and exactly the type of law they want to practice. Other students come to law school like me. I was a first-generation student, no lawyers in my family. I had absolutely no idea what a lawyer really did besides Claire Huxtable, LA Law, Matlock, and Perry Mason. And so the great thing about UConn Law is that we have great professors and students and alumni and staff professionals that will help you decide for yourself what pathway you want to be on, and will help equip you with the necessary skills and knowledge to pursue that pathway. I came here because we are a diverse community that is open to everyone and that wants to make sure that everyone feels that they belong here because in fact they do. We have a very compassionate and caring student body, a very active alumni group, that everyone comes together to make sure that you will not just survive law school, but that you will actually thrive and you will achieve your personal and professional goals. This is a great time to be considering going to law school. As we all know, our world and our country is changing on a daily basis because of so many different things that's going on, whether that's the pandemic, whether that's a renewed call for social and racial and criminal justice. Whatever is bringing you to law school, you all will be the advocates for the future. You will be the problem solvers for the future. And I'm confident that you will receive a great foundation in advocacy, in community service here at UConn Law. That's part of what brought me here. And I'm excited to think about you all joining us as you consider ways in which you will advocate and help move our country and our world towards a more just and equitable society. I wish you all a wonderful evening. I thank my colleagues for being here, for imparting great knowledge, and I wish you all the best in your journey to hopefully here to UConn Law. And with that, I'll turn it back to Lauren. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Dean Nelson. Well, we have a lot of different elements of UConn Law that, that are fantastic and excellent. And so we're going to go through mini presentations by the deans and directors of some of the most commonly asked about areas of our law school. We are going to touch on an academic overview, followed by a clinical and experiential learning overview. We're going to chat about our community with our Dean of Students. And then, of course, you're in professional school, so we know it's all about the job. So our Director of Center for Career Development is going to speak to you as well. And so without further ado, let's get to an academic overview presented by our Associate Dean for Academic Affairs, Dean Darcy Kirk.
Hello there, everybody. My name is Darcy Kirk, and I'm the Associate Dean for Academic Affairs here. And unlike our very new Dean, Ebony Nelson, I have been here since 1996, so quite a long time. And I have to say, I never thought I would be here so long. But I love this school, love the, the emphasis on social justice, and it is a public law school, and it's really a wonderful community. So I hope you all consider very seriously coming here if you are admitted, because it is just a really wonderful place. I'm here to tell you a little bit about our academic program, and I'm going to be followed by Dean Paul Chill, who will talk specifically about our experiential learning programs, including, of course, our wonderful clinics. So I won't be talking about those because he will. But so I'm going to begin by telling you, as Dean Nelson told you, we have two programs, day and evening, but also full-time and part-time. So you can go full-time or part-time for 3 years, 4 years, and sometimes longer. Our students, it does give you a lot of flexibility. We also have summer and a summer term, actually two different summer terms, June and July, and also a winter term. So those all give you some flexibility with your schedule and with sort of the timing of obtaining your degree. The first year program is pretty typical of most of the law schools that you're applying to. We offer the traditional doctrinal courses, contracts, torts, criminal law, constitutional law, property, civil procedure. Those are all required first year courses. You'll also be required to take what we call legal practice, which is a 3-part course. The fall is the first semester offers the basics of writing. The winter term offers negotiation, and then the spring semester builds on the writing skills and adds in client interviewing, counseling, and appellate advocacy. Also, before you arrive, we do assign you a first-year advisor who you can then work with for your entire time you're here, or not, but at least you have a member of the faculty early on to help you sort of wend your way even before you arrive. The upper 2 or 3 years, depending on if you're a full-time or part-time student, really is a huge list of many courses, mostly taught by our prestigious full-time faculty, but also taught by some wonderful adjuncts who are experts in their field and bring a wonderful practical tone to the classroom. With a few exceptions, all of the upper class courses are electives. You are required to take something called legal profession, and also, which is an ethics course. And also we have what we call a practice-based learning requirement, which I will defer to Dean Schill because I'm sure he'll mention that as well. And then you also have a writing requirement. We call it the UCWR, the upper class writing requirement. But really beyond those few requirements, it's really up to you to sort of choose your courses. And we always tell students, to even take something that you might think you'd never want to take. A good example is tax. I took tax in law school and thought, well, everyone says you should take tax, so I'll take tax, but I'm not going to like it, and I'm going to hate it. And I found myself on the edge of my seat because I actually learned about the tax code. I actually learned why we have taxes and how, and when I file my taxes, why I'm doing it and why I'm taxed on certain things. So I do think you're good. I think one of the wonderful things that I've found about law school was just the body of knowledge that is sort of opened up to you, that you finally understand everything. You can understand a little bit about the election law. You can understand about the Supreme Court oral argument that happened today on the ACA, Obamacare. It just makes it really enables you to be a full participating citizen in our country. And after the most recent election, I think we all feel like we wish we understood a little bit more about how it works. Most of your courses, even in upper class, are only 20 to 30 students, so you get to know the other students, you get to know the faculty, and it's a really just a wonderfully close community. What else? Just touch on a few things. We offer certificates, so they're sort of like majors, so you can sort of major in certain areas, and the topics on those are human rights, tax, intellectual property, energy and environmental law, law and public policy. Newer ones are corporate and regulatory compliance, insurance law and regulation, and transactional practice. We also offer dual degrees, so you can complete a second master's degree in a shorter time period along with the JD, and the dual degrees are with an MBA or with a master in public policy, with a master in social work, or with a master in public health. We also offer 2 domestic semesters away. One is in Washington, D.C., where you would move to Washington, D.C. for a semester and work there, most likely in one of the federal agencies, and then take 2 courses from one of our full-time faculty who actually lives in Washington, D.C. And then we also have a very new New York City semester. Again, you can move, because New York is a little closer, you could possibly commute, but most of our students, move to New York and work there, and then again take a couple of courses along with it. We also, although we can't travel right now, when we can, again, we have exchange programs and programs abroad in Aix-en-Provence, France, Dublin, Ireland, Leiden, the Netherlands, Berlin, Germany, London, England, and Beijing, China, to name, and there are several other programs as well. And then we also have an extensive externship program, but I bet Dean Schill will be talking about that as well. I don't have too much else to say, but just to sort of build upon what everyone else has said so far, and will say all night, that it's a wonderful law school. And I know it's very hard now during the pandemic to visit a law school. So this is as close as, I mean, you can certainly come to our campus and walk around, but we're not there to provide you a tour. And I'm sure Lauren and Rachel regret that, but please know that if you select UConn, you will be making a very good choice for your future. And while you're here, you'll be happy, and the opportunities once you graduate are extensive. So with that, I will turn it back to Lauren.
Thank you, Dean Kirk. And, just to kind of sum up the academics overview, really, it's all about you being able to make your JD what you'd like it to be here at UConn Law. And I think that Dean Kirk summarized that nicely. One facet that I did want to bring up is that if you are interested in interdisciplinary studies, but don't necessarily want to go the full path of a joint degree program, we do enable our students to enroll in upper level, master's level programs within other institutions as part of the UConn family. So if you wanted to just take a business law class from the MBA program, there is a way for you to petition to be able to do that, so that you get that flexibility. You can make your JD as interdisciplinary as you'd like it. In fact, many of our faculty members themselves come from interdisciplinary backgrounds. Of course, they all have their law degrees, but there are also PhDs in history, in architecture, in economics. And so that is certainly something that we value and encourage if you want to take that interdisciplinary route. But of course, learning the law is not just about what you do in a traditional classroom setting. Oftentimes, and certainly in my case, I learned the law best by doing. And so with that, I'm going to introduce Dean Paul Chill, our Dean of Clinical and Experiential Learning, to talk a little bit about that concept of learning by doing at UConn Law. So Dean Chill.
Thank you, Lauren. Hello, everybody, and welcome. Dean Nelson has been at UConn for 3 months. Dean Kirk has been at UConn for longer than that. I've been at UConn longer than anybody on this call, with the exception of Rachel Torres, who I think of the admissions staff. I was actually a student here in the early 1980s. I'm like a bad cold. I'm really hard to get rid of, which is the wrong metaphor during this global pandemic. My domain is that part of the curriculum where students earn academic credit for representing clients and performing other real legal work under supervision. We were one of the first dozen or so law schools in the United States to make this a requirement a little under 10 years ago. Believe it or not, that was a new thing 10 years ago, to require some kind of practice-based learning. And we were actually pioneers in the clinical legal education movement beginning in the late 1960s. I've got a couple of slides to share here. Let's see if I can make this work. And I think here we go. Okay. Our clinics, like those at other law schools, grew out of the civil rights and anti-war protests of the late 1960s. You can read about our own clinics, a rather storied history, if you're interested, on our website. Just search for Born Fighting, which is shown on the slide. It's a short and entertaining history of our clinics, written by a member of our faculty, actually one of our faculty members who has a PhD in history. If protest is not your thing, don't worry. We've got plenty of clinical opportunities for you as well. And so what I want to do now is, in the time remaining, highlight some of the clinical opportunities. I know this is way too many words on a slide, but I wanted to show you the big picture. These are all 18 of our current clinical and field placement offerings that students can choose from, which is quite a lot for a school our size. All of these clinics and field placements are aimed at fulfilling some sort of unmet legal need in the community, in the state, and thereby serve the public interest. We are a public law school, so that's a critical part of our mission. I'm not going to go into the difference right now between clinics and field placements, but I do want to highlight some of the organizations we partner with in order to leverage our clinical resources and offer specialized programs. You see our clinical partners there. I'll just run through a few of these. We offer a child advocacy clinic in partnership with the Center for Children's Advocacy, which is the largest child advocacy organization in the state of Connecticut. It was actually spawned by the law school. We offer an elder law clinic that is specifically designed to meet the needs of evening students, which is a partnership with Greater Hartford Legal Aid. Our partner in the environmental law clinic is the Connecticut Fund for the Environment / Save the Sound, which is the largest statewide environmental nonprofit. In conjunction with the Connecticut Urban Legal Initiative, a nonprofit which is actually housed right on our campus, we operate a clinic that provides transactional legal assistance to community organizations and groups. With the Office of the United States Attorney for Connecticut, which is part of the United States Department of Justice, we offer a U.S. Attorney's Clinic. We have a Veterans Advocacy Clinic, which again is designed especially to fit the schedules of evening students, which we operate in conjunction with the Connecticut Veterans Legal Center. And in partnership with Connecticut's Chief State's Attorney, who's Connecticut's top prosecutor, we have a prosecutor's externship program. But what I really want to emphasize are our in-house clinics. These are the heart of any law school's clinical program. They are essentially mini law firms taught by full-time faculty members. And what that does, the fact that they're taught by full-time faculty members, that enables students to be given a great deal of responsibility for their clients' matters. Students aren't simply handed a task or a project by a senior lawyer as they will be when they enter practice in most instances. Instead, they're given first-level responsibility for the client, for developing and executing a plan to help the client address whatever legal problem, whatever life problem, or set of problems brought the client to the clinic. That is real lawyer training. That's real lawyer training, the kind of training that not only teaches skills, but the ability to learn from one's own experience, which is paramount for lawyers because law school takes 3 years, but people's legal education takes a whole career. You keep learning your whole career. And the better you are at learning from experiences, what we teach in clinics, the better learner you will be as a lawyer. Let me run through the in-house clinics. One of the first animal law clinics in the country is our animal law clinic, in which students are appointed by the court to advocate for the interests of justice in certain animal cruelty cases. The faculty member who directs that clinic actually wrote the law known as Desmond's Law, which enables the court to appoint special advocates in those cases. So a faculty member wrote the statute and then started a clinic to take advantage of the student opportunities created by the statute. Students in the Asylum and Human Rights Clinic have an astonishing 93% success rate in obtaining asylum for refugees fleeing severe persecution from their lands of origin. Our Criminal Defense Clinic has produced many of the state's top criminal defense lawyers, prosecutors, and even judges. Our Intellectual Property and Entrepreneurship Clinic was created by an act of the state legislature, and our clinic was one of the first 6 law school clinics in the nation selected to participate in a new program under which students are granted limited recognition to practice law under supervision before the United States Patent and Trademark Office. Students in the Mediation Clinic mediate actual employment discrimination cases pending before the State Human Rights Agency. And students in our tax clinic represent low-income taxpayers in disputes with the IRS and with state taxing authorities, which you might be surprised to learn is a major unmet legal need. The need for tax representation by low-income people is such an unmet legal need that the IRS itself spends millions of dollars every year funding clinics like ours to provide legal services to people of low means. So those are just our in-house clinics. I already talked about some of our partnership clinics, and the other opportunities include the semester in DC program and the semester in New York City program that Dean Kirk mentioned. Let me stop sharing here. Okay. One other thing I want to mention before I stop. Connecticut, it so happens, has one of the most liberal student practice rules in the country. And what that means is that court rules in Connecticut permit law students under faculty or other lawyers' supervision to do essentially anything that a lawyer can do, anything a licensed lawyer can do, both in or out of court under supervision. So by way of personal example, I've supervised students trying cases and arguing appeals in a variety of courts, including the Connecticut Appellate and Supreme Courts. That's a rare opportunity for a law student. It's rare for a state to have such liberal rules. Imagine standing up in front of the 7 justices of the Connecticut Supreme Court as a second or third year law student and arguing an appeal against an experienced assistant attorney general, state's attorney, or other lawyer. Imagine the preparation and training that goes into that. Lauren, do I have 90 seconds to tell a quick war story? So I want to just close with a quick war story related to that. The first time that I supervised a student arguing in the Connecticut Supreme Court, it was a very high stakes case. We represented a young mother whose parental rights to her daughter had been terminated because of neglect and some mental health issues. The case is in re Samantha C. You can look it up. The third year law student who was arguing the case was extremely well prepared. He had undergone no fewer than 7 practice arguments called mootings, in which we asked him every conceivable difficult question that he might be asked by the justices, and then some. Well, he stood up in court. We went first because our client had lost a trial, and he started to speak, and a minute went by, and there were no questions. And then 2 minutes went by, and there were no questions. 3 minutes and no questions. And I was starting to panic because, as you may know, lawyers actually like it when judges ask questions because it tells you what the judge is thinking and what the judge thinks is important. And the Connecticut Supreme Court is a notoriously hot bench in terms of asking questions. Anyway, the one thing happened that we hadn't prepared for, which was that the justices didn't ask a single question. Fortunately, my student was so well prepared that he delivered a seamless, uninterrupted argument as the sweat ran down my back. And we both waited with bated breath to see what would happen when the assistant attorney general stood up to argue. And lo and behold, they peppered her with questions from the beginning. And it became quite clear that we'd won the appeal before we even entered the courtroom because the justices had been persuaded by our brief. Anyway, I got a lot more good war stories if we had more time. Obviously, I'm very enthusiastic about what I do and what our clinics and field placements do. I wish you all good luck with your decision about where to attend law school or where to apply to law school if you haven't applied yet. And I'm happy to take questions by email. You can find my email address on the law school website. Happy to respond to questions.
Thank you, Dean Chill. So now we are going to switch gears a little bit away from the academic side of things and talk about life at UConn Law. Believe it or not, while you're going to law school, life is still going to happen. And so I am excited to introduce our Dean of Students, Jennifer Cerdy, to talk to you a little bit about the community and life at UConn Law.
Well, good evening, everyone. It's nice to see a handful of smiling faces engaged with us online, and a lot of participants on this call. I am actually also a graduate of the law school, so I've been in the student affairs various roles here for about a decade, a little bit more. And if you add a couple more years onto that, you would get to somewhere in the midst of me going to school as an evening student while working full time for a law firm in West Hartford. And so I have a really kind of unique perspective on what student life is like, because I lived it and I did the juggle, the work-life balance. And now coming back, I'm able to get to know the personality of each incoming class and kind of tailor our programs in student affairs to really meet your needs to the best way that we can. So just to give you a quick roadmap to my talk, because I don't have a PowerPoint like Dean Chill does, I'm going to start by letting you all know just the general organization of how our student affairs team works to support you while you're a student here, examples of some of the services we provide, and then I'll kind of bury the lead at the end and talk a little bit about what it's like to walk through our campus and engage with the other members of the community here, both on and offline. So our student affairs department is set up a little different than some of the other schools that you might be familiar with. And we were very purposeful about making sure that some of the departments that really help you and support you with your education outside of the classroom all are under one umbrella, so that we can all work together to make sure that any needs that you have while you're here are met, and that you really feel like UConn Law has provided you a community and a place that you stay connected with, and the people that you've met here for a long time afterwards. We really like to say that we educate the whole student. The professors do such good work in the classrooms, and then there's a number of staff and folks in the library that will all kind of be your like I said, security nets on the outside as well. So to that end, we have 4 departments under student affairs at UConn Law. We have careers, who you'll hear from in a few minutes, which is a really, really important and dedicated team here. Wellness department, we generally say that that's to ensure that you graduate the best version of yourself while you're here. Disability services, which operates under the principles of equal access and universal design. And finally, student services, which is our kind of kitchen sink, catch-all programming department and support. So again, you'll hear from Director Hard from the Center for Career Development next, but just know that the careers folks are a very committed and innovative group that has a lot of experience working with our students. And I'll be excited for you to hear her next. One of our most appreciated and utilized campus resources is our wellness department. I mentioned that a few minutes ago. So we employ 2 mental health counselors at UConn Law School, and we've set it up in a way that they're able to be independent contractors. So everything that gets said in those offices is completely confidential. One keeps day hours, the other makes themselves available nights and weekends. And they are here generally to support you, whether it's a big issue or a small issue. In addition to that, almost 4 years ago, we really kind of broke the mold and started a new program for law schools. We were the first one to do it, where each incoming 1L will meet with a member of our mental health counseling team for 15 minutes during the fall semester. And each of the incoming 1Ls will also meet with me for 15 minutes during the fall semester. It's a medical school model that we employed, and we do that so that not just so that students can seek help if they themselves need help, but we really think it's important at UConn to protect the pack. All of the classmates that you have and the 2 and the 3Ls that you'll see walking around campus, everybody's in this together. And in order to have a healthy and strong legal system in Connecticut, that all starts with you all taking the best care of yourselves when you're in law school. So we do these meetings. The meeting with me is more of a matchmaking meeting. I have students that come in and talk about their interesting field hockey habit or some area of science and the law that they're interested in. And I'm able to then see what the trends are, match students with other students to create new student organizations, maybe connect them with a professor that shares the same interest. And that's a really great part of my job. It's so neat to see students who come in and mention an interest and then 3 years later have started a really successful group on campus to support that interest. So that's exciting. We also, as I mentioned, have disability services. One of the things that separates us from other law schools, for those of you that might be coming into law school with a documented disability, is that our disability services program is completely confidential. We empower students to share that information with other people if they choose to, but we are not going to share it for you. So for those of you familiar with these programs, you might have been at an undergraduate school where you were required to present a professor with a letter and negotiate your accommodations with those professors in the classroom. And that's not the way that we do it here. We take care of all of that for you. Your only job is to show up to class, get the information and move through the law school without having to think twice about others knowing or being aware of your disability. So that's a program that we are really excited about. And we also have some mentorship programs within that department as well. So moving into the student services prong of the department. So student services, we put on programs all year long. We do exam days. We've done mini carnivals at the end of the year, all the things that you're probably used to in undergrad, but with a graduate school twist. And what I like to say about our department is we're nimble. So when we see trends or things that students are interested in, we try and cater our programming to that, to meet that need, to make sure that you feel that you are part of a bigger group here and that you're in a welcoming and inclusive environment. We offer 46 plus student organizations right now. They focus on everything from things like sports interests to practice areas to legal competition. Almost a quarter of these are affinity groups, which means that we have a really dynamic group of cultural conversations going on campus. We are in our 10th year of a program that was, again, one of the first ones to start at a law school, but our Diversity Week, which is something that all the students come together for, and it really builds our sense of community. In addition to that, we have other events that are kind of fan favorites each year, like our PILG auction and our WILSA mentoring mentee program. The PILG auction's 25 years plus in existence. And so it's fun to go to events like that when we're on campus and see people who have graduated in years prior and network and meet people and talk. So really there's something for everyone. So what I want you to take away more than anything is that even though we have these parameters for our departments and we know what our goals are, we really do listen with an open ear. So if you're on campus and something, there's something that's not there, or there's a professor that you don't feel like you've met, or an interest area, or you're having, a challenge with somebody, our office is the catch-all for that. If we were on campus right now, when Lauren's team would be doing their campus tours, my office door is always open, and it's one of my favorite times of the year to have students pop in and challenge me to think about what we could do to make to make the student experience more conducive to a great learning environment and enhance the time that you're here. So I will end. I think I came 1 minute short, so that's good. But please feel free to reach out if you have any questions for us. My email address is right on the website. My teammate Caitlin Doherty's email address is also there. And both of us would love to talk to you more about how awesome it feels to walk across our campus. Interestingly enough, in any weather, because we have that kind of Gothic, awesome buildings on campus. So good luck to all of you, and I hope to see some of these faces soon.
Thank you, Dean Cerny. And with that, we are going to pivot once again. We've talked about what you're going to be doing while you're in law school, from academics to student life, but I know you're all extremely interested in, well, what am I going to do after law school? And so to give you a little bit of the idea of both the services provided while you're in law school and some of our outcomes, after law school, I'd like to introduce you all to the Director for the Center of Career Development, Suzanne Hard.
Hello. Hi, all. I'm Suzanne Hard, Director for the Center for Career Development, and I'm so excited to have a chance to talk to you and meet y'all. Our office has just a great team of lawyers with extensive experience in the legal profession and all sorts of work. Each of our associate directors is responsible for an area of employment. Don Bell, who worked in the Senate before joining our team, is in charge of our government and public interest employment. Meredith O'Keefe, who has both private sector and public interest experience, is our lead on judicial internships and clerkships. And Tracy Evans Moyer has over 17 years of experience with AmLaw 100 firms, where she was actively involved in hiring. So we just have a great team. And I think one of our unique strengths in our office is our one-on-one counseling, which we make available to all students. And I think that this is something that really has an impact on our results. We know there's not just one path to a meaningful career as a lawyer, and we work with students to help them identify opportunities that are a good fit for them. We know that some of you come in knowing exactly what you want to do, and that's great. And then there are others who are still learning about the profession and sorting out what they might want to pursue. We also know some of you are coming straight from undergrad, and others may have family commitments and jobs and are coming as an evening division student. And so we know how to help you to get from where you are in particular to where you want to go. So some of the things I want to just mention to you is, in addition to our one-on-one counseling, we offer a pretty robust schedule of programming to empower you to be ready to take advantage of opportunities in the law. We take an approach of advising students to try to get to summer experiences and your clinic, your practice-based learning requirement, your clinic or your field placement. Those are all opportunities to get legal experience to build your resume, and we will support you in pursuing those opportunities. This past summer, because we realized that we were operating online and weren't going to have to wait until students joined us on campus to start working with them, we launched a program for 1Ls called our Jumpstart. And we expect to continue with this program because we were so pleased with the results. What this allowed us to do was to help entering students get some of the critical professional development career skills under their belt before they started having to learn how to law student. So the program consisted of their introductory counseling session, meeting one-on-one with a counselor to learn about timelines and opportunities for employment and what career paths might look like. In addition, we worked with them on their resume. We did a workshop on resumes and also on our Simplicity platform, which is an on-demand online platform that we use to allow you to post your resume, to find employers use it to post jobs. We also use it to manage the logistics of our recruiting programs. In addition to that, we do a lot of other things to make sure that you get connected to employers. For example, we've all pivoted online, but historically we did a lot of in-person things in our gorgeous, gorgeous campus, and our employers were very happy to come to be invited because many of our employers are alumni, and they really are very involved in the community and love to come back. But so we do career fairs, we do meet the employer receptions. We do something called the practice area dinner, where we work with our alumni association to match you up on kind of almost like a speed networking night, where you get to go from table to table and talk to attorneys in all different practice areas. So we do a lot of things to try to build opportunities for you to connect to the legal employment community. We ourselves work very hard on building opportunities for our students. And while things have changed, the timelines have changed this year, but we had many employers recruiting with us formally in the fall, and we expect to do another round in January. One program that we work really hard on building is our Boston program, because we know a lot of students want to go to Boston. In fact, I see one of our Boston alumni on this evening. And so we have a wonderful program, a wonderful tradition of recruiting in Boston. This year we're going to be online, hopefully next year back actually in person. but we have a number of firms, large Boston firms that recruit with us and are scheduled to review our students' resumes and do interviews in January. So that's our Boston recruiting program. For New York, we've been working on a resume collect. We're getting a lot of interest in a resume collect right now. And in addition, we also maintain a New York City Bar Association membership that allows our students to attend programs in New York. Right now, that's super easy because it's all online. And that gives students an opportunity to connect with the New York City employers and learn more about practice there. You heard about our Washington, D.C. program. That's another thing that we support students on. So we do a lot to make sure you get connected to the employer community. One other important program we've been offering is something called the Alumni and Residence Program. Every couple of weeks, we do a program. We just did one on Monday on litigation finance with one of our alumni and a couple of other people in this growing industry to learn about what kinds of skills might take you into this kind of a practice setting. So we've also done things recently on careers in cybersecurity with one of our alumni who work as a cybersecurity and privacy counsel for Verizon. We've done programs on just the associate's path, how to get into a private sector law firm with our alumni. We just do a lot of programming that connects you, and all our alumni are just an amazing community, and they're very happy to speak with you. So in addition to one-on-one counseling, our programming to teach you about the elements of a legal job application, we do document review, we support your applications. We did our Jumpstart program. We do a lot of stuff outreach. So the other thing you might want to know about is our results. So our students end up in all kinds of places. We have a large number that go to Connecticut, but also a significant number of our students are employed in DC, Boston, New York, California, Florida. Where there's a will, there's a way, and we are here to help you figure out how to get to where you want to go. In addition, they go into about 20% of the last class went into judicial clerkships, which is just a tremendous opportunity to start your career. Another 50% or so go to private practice. Of that, I think we had about 10%, a little over 10% go to big law last year. It's a real mix. So whatever you want to do, there's going to be a way to get there. In 2018, we had 97.8% employed at 10 months. In 2019, we are at 90.4%. But if you actually break that down, it's only 3% that are actually seeking work at that point. My own experience is that people who work with us get great results at the end. And we have just an outstanding connection to the Connecticut legal community. Our students get summer jobs and school year internships all over the place. So with that, I'm going to wrap this up, but I hope I get a chance to work with you all. And I'm very happy to answer questions should you have any after tonight. Please send me an email. Happy to get back to you.
Thank you, Suzanne. All right, we have so far had many presentations by a lot of folks, and we've all gone to law school, but at this point, it may have been a little bit longer ago than we all would like to admit. And so as we shift gears towards the next segment of our session, I wanted to have you all the opportunity to speak to some peers, some folks who just 2, 3, 4 years were very much in the exact same seats that you are now. And so that is why for the next 20 minutes, we are going to hear from our current student panel. As I had mentioned, I see that you guys are utilizing that chat feature. That is awesome. If you have questions specifically for the current students, please feel free to enter them there. But for now, let's get started with some introductions of our current students. So Duncan, Angelica, Miranda, would you like to say hi and introduce yourselves?
Sure. Would you like us to go in that order? Great.
Sure
hi, everybody. My name is Duncan. I'm a current 3L at UConn Law. And I'm hoping that in the panel, we can just sort of be like human exclamation point of a lot of what's been said already. I grew up in Connecticut. I spent a few years working before coming to law school in DC. It's been a lot of fun listening to what folks in the administration have to say this evening, because A, I can't believe how quick it's been since 1L year in 2018. But B, I feel like I've been able to take advantage of so many of the great programs that have been talked about, and it's made me a more competitive applicant for post-grad jobs as a result. I'm not just saying that because they asked me to be here. And anyone who wants to connect one-on-one feel free to shoot me an email. It's my first name dot last name @gmail. I'm sure we'll get into some more specifics, but thanks so much for being here tonight, and it's thanks for your time.
Angelica?
Hi, everyone. My name is Angelica Matsuos Jennings. I'm a current 2L day student. I started off as a 1L part-time evening student, so I can speak to both of those experiences for those that may have questions. But I'm very excited to be speaking with everyone. Similar to Duncan, I worked prior to starting law school. I worked in higher education and student affairs for about 5 years. And so I'm happy to talk about my journey, and I'm very excited about my experiences so far, and more experience I've been able to get this year, and being a mom as well, and being very supported throughout my time in law school, and balancing being a mom, and especially being a mom during the pandemic and a law school student.
And Miranda?
Hi, so I'm a 4L evening division student with plans to graduate at the similar to Angelica, also a student parent, similar to both Angelica and Duncan. I worked for a little bit before coming back to law school, and I actually picked UConn because they had their day and evening division options, and because they were one of the more flexible legal programs available.
All right, and so the chat has gone shy for right now, but that's fine. I'm sure they'll pick up. I prepared some questions just in case this was going to happen. So panel, to start off with, right now, not a lot of students, actually no visitors are allowed into our buildings. You are allowed, prospective students, if you'd like to do outdoor tours, you're more than welcome. But so I'd like to just kind of get each of your thoughts on community at UConn Law. What is it like kind of stepping onto campus? What did you feel when you stepped onto campus for the first time? Kind of simulate that experience for our prospective students who may not get the chance to visit campus. So Angelica, I see you nodding your head. I'm going to go to you first.
Yeah, and I apologize in advance if you hear some noise in the background. Today's my son's 5th birthday, so lots of excitement. But so for me, I started off law school as an evening student, and so my community looked a little different when I first started. However, I went to campus for the first time as a prospective student. I went to a class, and that was the first time I was really introduced to students on campus, and I was immediately welcomed. In fact, I still have some of the students who reached out to me, their numbers, because they just immediately were like, please let us know if you have questions. But any administration that I had met since my time as a prospective student, even until orientation, knew exactly who I was before I even walked on campus. And that really made me feel connected, especially as someone that worked in administration at large public schools and went to a small private school, that people felt comfortable enough to reach out to me, but also made me feel comfortable in feeling like I had access to people beyond just who was in my classes. And beyond that, as an evening student, for those that are starting that program or looking into that, you have the same cohort of students in almost all your classes, and the professors know you very well. And so for me, my community is still very strong because of that evening cohort style. And now as a 2L and being a full-time student, I've gotten involved in a few things. And so for me, I have felt very connected, even more so as being a day student, even though we're not on campus. Being remote has its challenges, but it's allowed me to connect a lot more in a faster way than I would have if I was just starting this transition to being on campus full-time. So I find that the community for me was something that was very intimate, something that made me feel connected right away. And I was worried about that, especially as someone that has worked full time, that is a little older and have different responsibilities than some other students and stuff. So I never felt like I didn't have that community. And it is very easy if you don't have one to start connecting and finding that one interest area. So for me, the community at UConn is probably one of the first reasons that I decided to make that decision to go to UConn Law from the very first class that I went as a mock class, because I just felt like I felt comfortable, and that was very important to me as an underrepresented student, especially.
Excellent. And so we've got the chat is blowing up, so I'm going to move on. Awesome. Thank you for that input, Angelica. So Miranda, I'm going to throw this question to you. Could you describe what your day looks like in kind of the childcare and then going to class and having those dual responsibilities?
Sure. It's a challenge. One of the reasons that I did the evening program was because I do have a kid and I was moving from another state. So I was parent during the day, student at night. Made things kind of complicated. You have to learn how to really prioritize your time, do a lot of really good time management, and a lot of that's trial and error. I wish I could just hand you a ready, set schedule, but it's really up to your needs and the needs of your family or friends or whoever it is that you're accounting for when planning out your day. But with childcare responsibilities, if you have childcare assistance, whether it be daycare or someone else watching your child, that makes things easier because then you have more time just to devote to class. But the professors are very understanding. The schedule can be flexible. I actually had my second child at the beginning of the spring semester before all the COVID stuff went down. And knowing that I was able to plan out a reduced schedule, I was able to get paperwork in order, and the administration and the staff were really helpful in making sure that I was able to make those changes and deal with the financial side of things as well. So as long as you're willing to be open about it, which I know not everyone is, and that's a personal choice. But for me, just being open about my situation with professors or with staff or with administrators that I was working with about my needs and how they differed from a traditional law school student made it a lot easier for them to help me, to give me better advice about internship or classify or understand my situation of hey, I won't be, or doing exam deviations or something like that, or needing an extension on a assignment or maybe a final. So as long as you're willing to be open about that and work with the professor or the staff or the administrator, they work really hard at UConn to try and make that a better experience because they know that some of their students are non-traditional.
Excellent. Thank you, Miranda. This one's for you, Duncan. Alexandra asks, can you talk a little bit about adjusting to virtual law school? How has the school accommodated for any COVID shortcomings?
Yeah, so it was certainly an adjustment at first. So we went online, I want to say immediately after spring break last semester. So that'd be in March. I actually, on the whole, actually, I was pretty impressed with how professors managed it. Some better than others, of course. But I think we did miss out on some of that community that you're hearing about. But if you made a little extra effort, you could go to virtual events and stay in touch with people who you become close with, either in through classes or extracurriculars. For me, I'm somebody who needed, I really benefit from being in a library to do work. Doing work in my bedroom is not something that I can focus on particularly well. So I had to develop some new habits, like do not wear the same clothes all day, right? Just things as simple as that. This is the place in your apartment that you'll do work. This is the place, like, you're not going to do work in the bedroom, and it's this might seem trivial, but with the transition, I think it's important to set up some of those boundaries, and that's not unique to law school. If you're working now, I think you're probably finding something similar. But it was difficult at first because it did feel like an abrupt shift. But the school uses WebEx. We all have our own personal WebEx rooms. Everyone has their own link, their own call-in number. So it's really easy to set up time either with student groups or meetings with professors. Arguably, it's easier to track down some of the professors who are more difficult to find in their office hours earlier. So something I like to do before each semester was, earlier in the program, you heard about your first semester advisor or your first year advisor, who everyone is paired with a professor. She was also my professor during my 1L year for civil procedure. I haven't had a class with her since, but I have stayed in touch. And this summer, when I was helping my girlfriend move out of Chicago back east, I had about an hour-long conversation with her from a U-Haul truck on like what I was thinking for my final year in law school. So I guess that's just to say that people are open to being a little bit more flexible. And it is an adjustment, but like a lot of things, it just requires a little extra effort. So.
Absolutely. And just to share kind of the plans, I've seen a lot of questions about COVID. So there are no plans right now set for fall 2021. It's still just too early to tell. We are reopening the campus in a limited capacity for a few small seminar classes for our students. We're also doing a phased reopening of the library. And so as we kind of parse through that and see what happens, we'll be better informed for decisions for the fall, but cross your fingers that we'll return to some form of normalcy. So the next question, how is life in Hartford? What's the area like? Is it expensive? Where do students live? Anybody want to tackle that? If you want to raise your hand, panelists. Go ahead, Miranda.
Hartford is more expensive than where I moved from. I came from Indiana, where standard of living is much lower. So that was a bit of an adjustment. In general, like the area, things are easily accessible. You're never too far away from either lots of housing, things to do. You're an hour from the beach, 2 hours from New York, about an hour and a half from Boston, not accounting for traffic. And it's just like a really nice area to do just about anything. If you're into outdoorsy stuff, there's that. If you're a foodie, there's tons of that. If you're into cultural events, you're probably going to miss out just because of COVID. But before that, there's lots of good theaters in the area. I mean that for like plays and stuff. I mean, there's also movie theaters too. And I've really enjoyed it. Again, lots of things to do. You're really close to a lot of things if you're into like a different sort of scene. And a lot of things are very just accessible in general. And it is a little more expensive than most places. Then again, if you're coming from like a New York or a Boston, it's probably a little bit cheaper. It just depends on where you're coming from. And I've really enjoyed living here. I just enjoyed the ease of access, being able to get places a lot faster. Again, coming from Indiana where there's nothing for miles and miles and hours of driving, this was a nice change.
Excellent. So we have a few questions that I'm going to combine a bit and throw Angelica's way about work experience prior to law school. So was it a good idea? Were you a little bit nervous before, making this decision to switch careers? Could you speak a little on that, Angelica? Oh, you're muted. I can't hear you, but can any of the other?
It's weird.
Nope,
I
I'm
don't
getting
know that she's unmuted, but apparently she clearly is still muted somewhere. Yeah.
All right, let me see. While Angelica is getting that set up, Duncan, could you speak to a little bit about internships and clinics and your participation and how you found those things?
Yeah, sure. So I'm currently in the U.S. Attorney's Clinic right now. It's a bit of a switch for me because I wasn't intending to practice in any sort of criminal law, but it's a fantastic experience to get exposure to that world. So that's a clinic. And that I signed up through just your regular course enrollment. You can research the different clinics and decide what you might like to do. And when you pick your classes as an upper level student, it's really easy to enroll. I also am in one of the certificate programs that Judicial mentioned, the energy and environmental law. And so I do want to pursue a career in energy law after graduation. But what's neat about the certificate, and this is a pro tip if you do go to UConn or probably anywhere else that has a similar program, I was looking for ways at UConn that I could indicate to employers that I was interested in what they did, more than just my cover letter. I don't have the highest GPA of all my friends, so I need to stand out in all the ways that I can. But I found out that this might be too granular, but the certificate program shows up on your transcript, and you can sign up for it as early as your first week on campus. So if employers are looking at your application materials after your 1L year, you can say like, well, I'm pursuing this even though I don't have these advanced classes. So that's maybe a hidden benefit of the program, but it's unlocked a series of classes exactly in the space that I'm interested in. The last thing I'll say on that is that I also was able to do a field placement as part of a certificate program at the state's utility, Eversource Energy. And that was a fantastic experience as well, working with practicing attorneys. Pulling the lens back a little bit, so the certificate program was part of this, but I've been able to get the sort of tripartite experience of government, law firm, and in-house, right? That's the utility, that many employers sort of like to see on a person's resume coming out of law school. And the externships and the certificate programs and the clinics are a big part of accomplishing that.
Awesome, thank you. Angelica, I see that you're back. Can we test your audio?
Can you hear me now?
Yes, I can.
Great.
Yeah. So if you could talk to us, Angelica, about kind of professional experience ahead of law school. Was it beneficial? Were you concerned kind of switching paths? And then we're running a little close on time, so I have one more question to ask all panelists.
So for prior experience, as I mentioned earlier, I worked in higher education. I worked very heavily with conduct-related matters and residential life. So there's always this interest for me. I have my bachelor's and master's in poli-sci. And so there was always an interest there, but mostly from a higher ed law perspective, and just, justice. And so for me, I just felt like it was always missing. But I also knew going to school again, period, especially law school, was going to be daunting. And so knowing that I could start as a potential part-time student, I wasn't sure if I was going to be full-time at all. It wasn't part of the initial plans. It was nerve-wracking for me. I also started law school as a single mother as well. So it was very nerve-wracking in and of itself of having this new identity as a law student, and knowing that I'm a type A perfectionist type person, and type A perfectionism is not something that will make me very happy in law school all the time. In my first semester, especially in learning how to even write again and write so differently. And so for me, I think part of the reason why I didn't go straight to law school for me was I just knew graduating college at 21, my maturity was very different developmentally. And I needed that experience to get me to the place where I felt more confident to embark on this journey. And so for me, I think it gave me more of an edge for me. I think at the same time, it also, I had to break some of how I saw things in terms of how I write an incident report for my job. It looks very different of how I'm going to write a memo now in law school. And so just unlearning some things and learning new ways to do things, especially after not having been in school for, at that point, 5 years, was something that was a little daunting, and was, had its challenges its first semester and first year altogether. But I felt very supported in that process. I mean, all of my professors knew me and my whole cohort that we came from different experiences and we all have worked or we're still working. So I think that helped us, and having that understanding from our professors and getting that support that we needed was very beneficial for me in that transition.
Excellent, thank you. And I just have one question quickly, if each of the panelists wouldn't mind answering briefly. So why UConn Law? Why did you pick UConn Law if you were considering other law schools? No naming names, no need to do that. But if you were considering other programs, why did you choose UConn Law? So Duncan, start with you.
Really? Okay. Yeah, so why UConn Law, right? So we heard about it a little bit already from others, but the community at UConn was really something that, sorry, phone call. The community at UConn was something that I was really excited about. Both the community on campus and also the alumni community, who I think you'll probably be hearing from a little bit shortly. But I had gone to a smaller liberal arts school actually in Hartford. Would have never told you when I graduated that I'd be back in Hartford going to law school. But I wanted a similar experience where the professors, the administrators, and your peers were just really accessible. So I wanted that smaller school environment, and I've been able to make good on that. I also decided to go to law school, sort of not just UConn, but law school, because I was looking for sort of a recognized skill set. I was a history major in undergrad, and I wanted a set of tools that I could sort of take to a future employer and be like, hey, trust me, look what I can do. And I was looking for a skill set, but at UConn, I mean, it sounds sort of cheesy to put it like this, but I found really a worldview, like a way of looking at the world that I don't think is unique to UConn necessarily, but that law school teaches you, sort of gives you a new lens to look at things. And I've said it already on this call, but the experiences that I've been able to have with the certificate program or the field placements are sort of tools in that proverbial toolbox. So I'm happy to talk with anyone about it, about my experience offline. I can make my contact info available, but yeah, so thanks so much for your time tonight. Thanks for listening to us.
Thanks, Duncan. And it seems that we may have lost Miranda. I don't see your video there. Miranda, is your audio still working? All right, then Angelica, you're going to close us out. Why did you choose UConn Law?
Yeah, so why I chose UConn Law, it really was the accessibility of the staff, first and foremost. Lauren probably can attest, or anyone else. I've emailed tons of emails because I needed to make sure, my perfectionist self, that I was making the right decision, and the decision that was going to be beneficial to not just me, but also my family, especially at the time being a single mother. And so I had sent tons of emails to Lauren, Dean Dimiola I even met with, and speaking to Lisa Rodino in the registrar office to make sure that that schedule was going to work for mine and work for my son at the time. And I always got an answer, and I got it quickly. And they were always happy to provide themselves available to me and provide information that was necessary for me to make the right decision. And I knew that no matter what situation was going to come up, it was going to be hard to face, right? But I knew that I would be supported in that process. And having been a student for a year and a half now, that's been put to the test. I've gotten married in 1 year, got a house, still did law school and transitioned to full-time. And now I'm expecting my second child and still doing law school. And so I'm very, very supported in that process. And I am excited about the opportunities that I didn't feel like I could necessarily tap into as much when I was trying to juggle so much my first year. And now that I'm full-time, I'm able to do that and get more involved in different things on campus and still get the information I need so that when my second child comes in the spring, I can feel that same support, but still be able to access opportunities such as field placements and internships and things of that nature. So the main deciding factor for me was that support and feeling like I had advocates on campus that worked for the campus. And so that was the only way I was going to be successful. And so far so good. And so I'm excited to continue that. But that was the decision making for me in looking at other schools and having talked to many campuses and things like that.
Awesome. Thank you, Angelica. And I know, folks, that we didn't get to all of the questions for the student panel, but hopefully our alumni can remember back to their student experiences and answer some of those questions. But I do want to take this time out. Miranda, Angelica, Duncan, you guys were fantastic. Thank you so much for sharing and for being here. And you can feel free to hang on for the alumni panel if you want, but Angelica, maybe you should go celebrate your 5-year-old's birthday. And so with that, now we are going to transition to the last segment of tonight's program, which is our Alumni Perspectives panel. And just like current students, we have 3 alumni who are here to share the wonderful things about their UConn Law experience. And so I'd like to start off with each of our alumni panelists introducing themselves. So Jim, Lauren, and Cecil, in that order, would you mind saying hello?
Sure. Hi, everybody. I'm Jim Anderson. I graduated UConn Law in 2015. I also went to UConn for undergrad, graduated in 2012 with a degree in mechanical engineering. So the old engineering to law path, as everyone does, but that's what took me here. I currently work at Proskauer Rose law firm in Boston, Massachusetts, in the litigation department. I started off doing primarily intellectual property and patent law and patent litigation, and I've branched out a little bit and do some more, still IP work, but also more corporate and securities law litigation as well now. So I think, I know we'll come back around, but I just want to say, I think UConn Law experience prepared me very well to go into a big law environment and to practice litigation in that setting. And what I would say, I was listening, as I've been listening to everybody, it's almost overwhelming how many different options that you have in terms of clinics and classes and externships and certificates. And so, don't get bogged down in making a decision about exactly which one of those you want to do now. Just know that you have all those options available to you if you go to UConn Law. And that's the real benefit, is being able to take advantage of them when you get there. So that's me.
Hi, everyone. I'm Lauren Casas. I also graduated from UConn Law in 2015 with Jim. Prior to that, I went to Bucknell, where I got my BA in International Relations. So what do you do with that other than go to law school similarly? And while at UConn, I got the human rights certificate and I took the asylum and human rights clinic. I am now a senior attorney at the Florence Immigrant and Refugee Rights Project in Phoenix, Arizona, so nowhere near Connecticut anymore. I'm originally from Connecticut and did a big change. And right now I do removal defense for immigrants who are detained. So that's immigrants fighting to stay in the country who are applying for asylum. But that's my job. And then just to quickly jump into what Jim said as well, I had not really an idea of what I wanted to do. I was like, I want to do human rights. I had no idea what that meant. In my first semester of 2 year, I got to do the asylum clinic and I never stopped doing asylum ever. And it was life-changing. And so thank you so much to UConn Law for figuring out what I wanted to do, because I didn't know. But there's a lot of pathways and there's a ton of clinics, and you don't need to know your 1L year at all or before your 1L year. Like, people figure it out.
Hi, everyone. Cecil Thomas, class of 2006, and it's a pleasure to be here with all of you and to be able to encourage you to go to the best law school in the country, UConn Law School. I will tell you a little bit about myself. I'm currently an attorney at Greater Hartford Legal Aid. It's the only paid legal position I've ever had. I started there right after graduating UConn Law School in 2006 and have been there ever since. I do primarily housing work, and so I represent tenants facing eviction. I've been able to bring affirmative class action litigation on behalf of tenants, and have been able to practice in a number of appellate and both at the state and federal court level. Additionally, I have served as just finished my term as president of the UConn Law School Alumni Association, and I'm currently the president-elect of the Connecticut Bar Association. And so, I've had the privilege both of obviously being a student and sort of finding my path at UConn Law School. I will admit to not really knowing what kind of law I wanted to practice. I knew that I wanted to help people with my law degree. I'm the first member of my immediate and extended family to become a lawyer. So I came to law school with kind of this generalized sense that I wanted to do good in the world. And then through a variety of summer experiences and the clinical opportunities at UConn Law, really found my path in public interest representation or public interest work, representing low-income individuals. And so it was really important to me to be able to represent individuals with issues that they were facing. And so that's what I've done with my career. In terms of why, did you ask us why we chose UConn, or is that for later?
I did not ask you,
Okay,
but I
I'll
think
save that.
we're blending it in kind of a little bit. So we'll get to it at some point.
Okay.
But let me start off because I had a deluge of questions that I wasn't able to answer in the student alumni panelists. Did anybody participate on a journal and can speak to that process and then maybe how that transitioned to practice? No? All right. So your journal questions.
I did do a journal. I don't know what it's like now. I'm sure Jim did too. I mean, so what I can say is I was on the International Law Journal. In terms of the journals, I think Law Review has the most work. It's the most prestigious. It comes with work to be that prestigious. So there's that. I enjoyed my time on the journal. I was the managing editor of the international one. I was able to get published, which was very cool for me. And I learned a lot. I do a lot of brief writing in my job right now. I do a lot of appeals. I do a lot of hearings where significant and very long briefing is necessary. So having that journal background was very helpful. If you don't do a journal, you do learn it, but I do think employers like it. I think it depends. I work at a nonprofit. I don't work at big law, and sometimes I think those are different, whereas like, oh, it's a nice to have in the nonprofit world. But, in big law, it might be a little bit different.
Just very quickly. I mean, in my experience, it certainly is not a requirement, at least at our firm. So, not the end of the world if the journal is not something you decide to do. I did law review. You can either grade on or you can write on. So the write on process is just a crummy weekend where you basically get the prompt and all of the materials and you have to write an essay basically. I do agree with Lauren. It's certainly not a requirement, but it does teach you how to write a little bit better, and it just teaches you the attention to detail. For first and second years, and junior attorneys who are more junior than me. Some of the best advice that I give them is just have the attention to detail. You don't know anything yet, so just know where every period needs to go and know where every comma is, and that's your biggest value add sometimes in the beginning. And journals certainly with that.
Excellent. Well, thank you for speaking to that. So let's transition a little bit into career talk. So when you were out interviewing for positions, how was the UConn name viewed by employers? What was kind of the reputation that you saw out in the market? And Cecil, if you want to start us off here and speak specifically perhaps to the Connecticut market.
I think what you'll find if you enter the Connecticut market is that UConn Law is represented at every level of the Connecticut legal profession, whether it be the judiciary, the large law firms in Connecticut, and certainly within the legal aid world that I operate in. And what I'll say is that, again, UConn Law School has a significant reach because of our alumni base and because of that placement and representation throughout the Connecticut legal profession. And I'll also add that several of my law school classmates who aspired to Massachusetts or New York were able to find positions in those states and really succeed in their careers as well. So I think the UConn Law brand is strong, particularly in Connecticut, which is an amazing place to live. And I say this as a Massachusetts native who really never thought I was going to live in Connecticut. I was born and raised outside of Boston. And if you'd asked me when I was in law school, are you going to stay here? I would have said, no. But the presence of UConn Law in the legal community in Connecticut is huge.
Jim and Lauren, anything to add on that front? Oh.
Go ahead, Lauren.
Oh, so I'm just going to say my field is really niche. So what really stuck out to people was the experience I was able to get at the clinic. That was how I got my job. So I worked at the Florence Project. It was my first job out of law school, and I've just kind of kept going with it. And what they really wanted to know was, what did I do in the clinic, which was litigate and represent someone in asylum proceedings in front of a judge. And that in a number of interviews I did all over the country, because I really wasn't tied to a place, was what truly, truly impressed them. And then, the UConn Law name was an added benefit, but that's what they were really looking for, is like the quality of our clinics made a big deal in my specific, very niche field.
And just to say, Boston, in recent years, the UConn Law brand and the UConn, really just the number of alumni working in Boston has increased quite a bit. And I think that especially at my firm, UConn Law has a good reputation. Out of a summer class that's anywhere between 10 or 14 students, there's usually one or two who are from UConn Law, which is a big deal. Coming from, where you're in Boston, have all the Boston schools and schools across the country that we're recruiting from. Similar to New York, I went to school, obviously not working down there, but our firm's New York office knows and has a positive opinion of UConn Law, and same as the other firms down there. Building off of what Cecil and Lauren said, really you're just trying to build your experience and build the story that you're able to tell about yourself. And so UConn Law makes it easy to do that. And because we're have more and more alumni in those two, Boston and New York markets, reaching out early to, me or whoever, career services, Suzanne's office can help put you in touch with folks. Reaching out with people during your time at school can help you out later on, and those connections can pay dividends.
Excellent. Now, Cecil, you had mentioned in your introduction that you weren't sure what area of law you wanted to end up with. Can you talk a little bit about how UConn provided either opportunities or support for you to go through that, and especially being in public interest? A lot of our students are motivated to enter public interest, so I'd love to hear that aspect.
Sure. So I think a couple of different experiences, one of which was just the clinical experiences that I was able to do in law school. I was a student in the Connecticut Urban Legal Initiative, which is a transactional nonprofit law firm on the law school campus, actually, that allowed me to work with nonprofit organizations, neighborhood revitalization zones, and do kind of that development and transactional work with Cooley. And then not having any particular interest in tax law, but wanting to really represent low-income individuals, I spent a year in the low-income tax clinic during my third year at UConn Law School. And so that was also a transformative experience, was working with low-income individuals. And the clinic instructor at the time, Diana Layden, went on to become a tax judge, and we've stayed in touch. And she was a fantastic, actually, both my clinical professors were just amazing mentors who really, we've stayed in touch. They've continued to offer advice and guidance as I've navigated my career. And that's been really fantastic. The other thing I would just add is that I think in retrospect, I wasn't as sensitive to this issue then as I am now, which is the issue of sort of value and the cost of UConn Law. And so I will admit that when I signed up for, I worked my way through college, sometimes 2 or 3 different jobs to just pay my bills. And so I didn't come to UConn with a ton of debt, which I was proud of. And then UConn Law is an amazing deal when it comes to the value for your education. And you know, you don't think about that, I think, when you're entering the law school career. Hopefully, maybe more of you are sensitive to it in a way than I wasn't. But when you graduate and you don't have this tremendous debt burden, for me, it was really liberating because I got to choose the job that I really wanted to do, that I was passionate about. And so, you know, I think back to my starting salary at UConn, Greater Hartford Legal Aid, and it certainly wasn't a lot of money at all. But I think I was able to do that job and put together a reasonably comfortable life for myself and my family because of, you know, the ability to keep that debt burden low and do what I wanted to do.
Absolutely. Thank you. So panelists, I'm very sensitive to your time. I know you're all very busy. So I am going to end with the final question, which you guessed it, why UConn? So why did you choose UConn if you were considering other law schools? Why should the folks on this call choose UConn? Lauren, could you kick us off?
Sure. So I kind of said it before, but I'll go. So, you know, I was a Connecticut resident, and the value like really can't be undercut. Like the level of education you're able to get and the value is really a big factor. But the other thing was it had everything I wanted. Like everything I wanted in places I wasn't able to get somewhere else. I stated before, I really wasn't 100% sure exactly what I wanted to do, something in this vague human rights field. And we have so many clinics at UConn. Like for the size of UConn and the number of clinics and different experiences you're able to get, it's like truly, truly remarkable. So I chose it in large part because the asylum clinic interested me, as did, you know, the prosecution or defense internships, because I was all over the map. And I really enjoyed that it was a smaller school, and that, you know, you would get to know your classmates and that you would get to know your professors, because I had heard some, I think, horror stories of, you know, being in classes of 700. That's never going to happen at UConn. You know, I went to a relatively small liberal arts undergrad, and so I like had no idea how to be in a giant class, and I didn't learn well that way. So I think the value, the quality of education, and it just had like absolutely everything I wanted or needed. And just I like this sounds like really hippy dippy, and I'm not like that, but like I really like the vibe when I was on campus. I like the buildings, I like the people, like it just felt right.
Awesome. Thank you. Jim, why UConn Law?
Yeah, so it's going to sound redundant, but starting with the vibe that you get, I mean, it is a really good community of people. You'll be surrounded by a lot of very smart people who come from very different backgrounds, but at the same time, it's not a group that takes itself too seriously. So, you know, I think I knew Lauren fairly reasonably well in law school. I think we all had a pretty good time, and we all went on to do good things. And so, you know, that's certainly one plus, just the varied opportunities. So I did the intellectual property and entrepreneurship law clinic, which was helpful jumping into the IP world. I saw a question earlier if there were any folks who had, you know, a lot of work experience before entering law school. I did not, but I worked the law clinic with some folks who had worked for 10, 15, 20 years in various engineering fields. I know people who have gone through tax and insurance and done similar things. And then I would just say the other opportunity that was most beneficial to me was an externship at the Federal District Court in Connecticut, where I worked for a federal district court judge for a year and observed all of his court proceedings and helped write an opinion over the course of the semester. So the opportunities in the community, both huge benefits and great reasons to pick UConn Law School.
All right, and round us out, Cecil, why UConn Law?
I'm going to say two things. One is that this is a strange thing to emphasize in a pandemic, but to echo what Lauren said, when we all do return to in-person classes and seeing each other in person, the law school campus is truly inspiring. And so, I graduated in 2006. I find myself, pre-pandemic back on campus quite frequently, and it never fails to inspire. The buildings, the community, the vibe, as others have said, is truly amazing. The other thing I'll say is places come down to people. And so I have really maintained some very strong connections to faculty and administration and staff that were in place when I was a student, and then built relationships with, those who have come on board since. And having that support network when you go into the practice, especially when you're a relatively new attorney and you're trying to figure it out. And, I would still see some of my favorite professors at lunch, on breaks from court, or be able to catch up with them over coffee or ask them a question about an issue I was dealing with. And so those relationships are really what it came down to. And I think, buildings are nice, and I don't want to, I do emphasize that the UConn Law's buildings and facilities are amazing. But, when it comes down to it, the people make the place what it is, and that connection remains very strong, even for somebody like me who's now, almost 15 years out.
That's a perfect way to wrap up our event, Cecil, because it really is the people that make UConn Law. And even on a Tuesday night at 6 p.m. from Arizona, from Boston, from Connecticut, from all over, these folks were willing to lend me their time, lend me their expertise so that you all could learn more about UConn Law. So I hope that you have, and I hope that you can all at least walk away from this event with one answer to why you're going to apply to UConn Law. And for those of you who are already admitted, why you're going to get your deposits into us. But to my panelists, alumni panelists, Lauren, Jim, Cecil, fantastic. Thank you so much for being here and providing that insight. For anyone who is looking to get follow-up questions answered, please feel free to reach out to the admissions office. We are here to partner with you to get you through the application process. All of our contact information is available on the website. And with that, everyone, have a great night. And if we have any veterans on the call, thank you for your service, and happy Veterans Day to you. Have a great night, everyone.
Thank you, Lauren. Have a good evening, everyone.
Thanks, everybody. Good luck.